Order the regular meeting of the East Point Community Schools Board of Education at 6:30. Secretary Williams is not here. He's en route, so Dr. Early will fill in until he gets here. Please call the roll.
Mr. Grunberg.
Here.
Dr. Early here. Mr. Roscoe.
Here.
Mrs. Rayford.
Here.
Mrs. Richardson. And Mrs. Grunberg. Here.
If we could all stand for the pledge, Dan will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next is there a motion for approval of the agenda?
Place forth a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Roscoe.
Yes.
Mrs. Grunberg.
Yes.
Mr. Grunberg.
Yes.
Ms. Rayford.
No.
Mrs. Richardson. And Dr. Early, yes.
Motion carries. Is there a motion for consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as is written.
Accept. Or second. Whatever you prefer.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments?
The C right now, the support, the new hiring, I want to hold off on that. I can do A and B, but not C right now.
So basically, are you saying because with consent agenda, what we would do is we would pull C from the agenda based upon the request of any board member, which is fine. But then what we would do is we would vote on A and B as a group. Okay? Okay, and then what we would do is we would then proceed with C, and we would vote on each individual one individually. Okay? So we would address each one individually. Are you guys fine with that in the motion? To address A and B first, and then we'll address the other ones individually?
Yes.
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 Okay, please call a vote.
Mr. Roscoe.
Yes.
Mrs. Grunberg.
Yes.
Ms. Rayford.
Are we moving C?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. No.
No. Mrs. Richardson.
Yes.
A and B. And Mr. Grunberg.
Yes.
And Dr. Early, yes.
Okay. Then you just, now, forgive me for the pronunciations of the names, just because we're doing them individually. And make sure you pass that along to anybody who may hear the mispronunciation. C1, I would move that we approve the contract for Edward Azam, Social Studies teacher, East Point High School. Is there a second?
I second.
Yeah. Once the motion's on the floor, and then before I call the vote, I'll ask, is there any questions or comments on number one? Seeing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Grunberg. Oh, Mrs. Grunberg.
No,
You
I
made the
made
motion.
it.
You
I
made
made
it. Mr. Grunberg.
Yes.
Mrs. Grunberg.
Yes.
Mrs. Rayford.
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe.
Yes.
Mrs. Richardson.
It's just number one.
It's number
number
one.
one.
Yes,
It's
sir.
number one.
I had a question about that because of his certification mentioned a letter that I haven't seen in the certification, and I had a question about that. It had a RX, and most of those X's and B's, I had just asked the question. I don't know for sure. I have to find out.
On number one.
On number one.
And you're saying that there was,
His certification, it stated that it was an RX, and I wasn't sure about the RX.
And the RX is the Social Studies Endorsement 612 for the state of Michigan. Edward also has the CC endorsement, which is world history.
I know he has a lot of certifications, but it's different with certification and being certified, so that's why I asked.
And he is a certified teacher in the state of Michigan with endorsements in 612, RX, and CC.
okay, now, we were mid-vote, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you were on, up to Ms. Richardson. Now that you had your question answered, Ms. Richardson? Yea or nay?
Nay.
Okay.
Everybody, except me, yes.
Who are you?
Dr. Early, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to take a second to get Mr. Williams up to speed.
Right, and I have a question too. 'Cause I don't understand
Didn't you
what
already vote?
Addie's asking.
What's that?
I don't understand what the RX is. Is that what you're asking, Addie?
Yeah, that's a certification for,
Yes, in the certification, you always get a letter behind your name
Right.
when you're in something. I just have, on my end, I'd never seen the RX. I know social studies. Social studies is a C, but I haven't seen RX,
So
and that's why.
we need to know what an RX is.
No, I don't
Is
know
what
what
you're
that
saying.
is.
Okay, and what is that? Does anybody know?
And,
she just stated it.
That's that certification
It
for
is
6
an
through 12.
endorsement.
12.
Yep, this particular employee is a certified teacher.
Okay.
The RX is an endorsement, and he is certified to teach social studies and the content areas in which he has been hired.
And that's what that means. The RX.
The RX is an endorsement. So what happens in the state of Michigan is you become a certified teacher, and then depending on your content and subject area, and if you had a major or a minor in the content area, you then can get endorsements. And so endorsements don't have to be for secondary people. An endorsement says that then you are certified to teach a number of courses depending on the endorsement.
So it's newer than probably when you were in school.
yeah, that's what I had
Right.
asked first, because they might have upgraded it since
Right.
then. But in my looking to see, I couldn't find the RX. But I do know that social studies is a C, and anything in that social science and anything in that area, they're qualified to teach, whether it's geography
Right.
or something of that nature.
Speaker to the chair. Question or statement. Our roles are to hire our superintendent.
Oh, I agree, but she asked on the consent agenda that we go through them individually.
I understand
which is
that. I
fine.
understand.
I agree.
Okay, so if we hire the administration to do their job, they
Right.
must need to have the ability to do their job.
I understand
We
that.
don't dive off into that threshold. We stay on our side, and that's to hire the superintendent, and it's not even her staff, but to hire the superintendent, so I think they should be able to do their job. Thank you.
But to your statement, as an educator, I feel this is my responsibility to at least come up and read
Sure.
it and
Sure.
make a statement one
Sure.
way or the other.
Understood.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is it all right if I bring him up to speed and then he can carry on from here?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Williams, we're on C2 is going to be the next item addressed. We finished off voting on one, and I think that motion carried 4-2, right?
4-2.
How did
Okay.
it go 4-2?
There was only 6 of us here at the time.
Six.
Mr. Williams didn't
No,
vote. He wasn't
I
here.
know, but I only heard one no.
Oh, she didn't hear everything.
So if you could please. What I'd like to make a recommendation to the board of is if we could please recall the vote, Mr. Williams. Mrs. Richardson separated, or the board president separated item C. We are now on the instructional new hire of Edward Azam, and we will be going line by line down through all 8 of those candidates. So if you could please recall, board president made the motion to recommend the hire for Edward Azam, and the second was made by Cassie Gruenberg. So if you could please recall the vote, Secretary Williams, we would appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is just clear, consent agenda,
This is
Just C1.
C1, yes, sir.
Each one's going to be addressed separate.
Mr. Grunberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Grunberg,
Yes.
Dr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes. Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mrs. Rayford,
Yes.
Mrs. Richardson.
After I get the clarification. So that must be a no.
And Mrs. Grunberg.
Sure it is.
So,
Next name.
just to clarify, we're going through each line.
Each one individually. So, and we'll get a motion on the floor, and then we can questions or comments after, before we call the vote. So as far as C2 is concerned, Nikita Washington, mathematics teacher, East Point High School, I would move that we approve.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Please call the vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, you moved too fast. For Ms. Washington, I noticed that she has an annual substitute letter.
So I'd like to make a correction to the, Ms. Washington does have a substitute letter, sorry. Please go ahead, Ms. Rayford.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, in light of the fact that this is math, at the high school, did anybody else apply for the, I'm concerned about student achievement, is what my point is.
Ms. Washington has been teaching not only in the state of Ohio, but also in the state of Michigan. She is a number of credits away from being able to be a certified teacher here in the state of Michigan and is working through finishing her teacher credential pathway.
Okay, please call the vote.
Okay, Mr. Grunberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Grunberg,
Yes.
Dr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes, Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mrs. Rayford,
No.
Mrs. Richardson.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I would move that Sasha Brooks, special education paraprofessional, Forest Park.
Skipped one.
I'm sorry, I was jumping around. I would move that the board approve a contract for Cal Nardone, social studies teacher, 6th grade, East Point Middle School. Is there support?
Second.
Questions or comments? Please call the vote.
Okay, Mr. Grunberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Grunberg,
Yes.
Dr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes, Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mrs. Rayford,
Yes.
Mrs. Richardson.
Yes.
Okay, I would move that the contract for Sasha Brooks, special education paraprofessional at Forest Park, be approved.
Support.
It was early. Questions, comments? Please call the vote.
Mr. Grunberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Grunberg,
No, it was early.
Dr. Early.
Dr.
oh,
Early.
I'm sorry, Dr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes, Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mrs. Rayford,
Yes.
Mrs. Richardson.
No.
I would move that the
Hey,
I thought that was seventh vote.
no, I didn't vote.
You didn't vote either. What do you miss?
Mrs. Grunberg.
Yes.
I have to mark it as,
I would move that the contract for Deanne Weissap, academic paraprofessional, Bellevue, be approved.
Support.
Questions or comments? Please call the vote.
Mr. Grunberg,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Dr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes, Mrs. Rayford,
Yes.
Mrs. Richardson,
Yes.
and Mrs. Grunberg.
Yes.
Okay, I would move that a contract for Leah Collier, special education paraprofessional, Forest Park, be approved.
Support.
Questions or comments? Please call the vote.
Mr. Grunberg,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Dr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes, Mrs. Rayford,
Yes.
Mrs. Richardson.
No.
Mrs. Grunberg,
Yes.
Okay, I would move that the contract for Dion Woods, special education paraprofessional, East Point High School, be approved.
Support.
Please call the vote.
Mr. Grunberg,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Dr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes. Mrs. Rayford,
Yes.
Mrs. Richardson,
Yes.
Mrs. Grunberg,
Yes.
Okay, I would move that a contract for Natasha Courts, Dean of Students, East Point High School, be approved.
Support.
Okay, well, I get first bite at the apple. I just want to say that I understand that,
We got to call the vote.
no, I'm making a comment.
Oh, comments, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm commenting. I understand that we have the right to pull every one of these out as a board under any item on the consent agenda, okay? And that we can address them individually. But I want it to be clearly understood at this point that the approval by the board primarily is ceremonial in nature, okay? The superintendent and administration is charged with interviewing, recommending, and hiring people to work in this district, okay? And I can assure you, and if you want to check, that it's done the same way in basically every district. So by the time this gets to our table, and the board, and some people may feel it's right or wrong, but I've been here for 20 years, the board has always requested that this be on the agenda primarily so that we have the opportunity to support administration's decision to hire them and get behind them as a district as a whole. It's not to sit up here and make the decisions, quite honestly, as to which teachers get hired and which teachers don't get hired, which paraprofessionals get hired or which paraprofessionals don't get hired. We are not expected to go through the resumes and analyze every prospective employee and hire them at the table. That would completely slow it down. And I can assure you that if you've ever worked in a public school district within the state of Michigan, you most assuredly had probably been offered a contract before it actually got to the board table. Now, I mean, you could look back to see if I'm accurate on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Because the superintendent is charged with the hiring and the interviewing process and everything. I mean, that falls into their realm.
So if I'm hearing you right, there's no point in our voting for it.
What's that?
If it's ceremonial, there's no point in voting.
Well, if you don't want to sit up here and say, I guess I could vote no against it every single time and say I'm not supporting what they're doing.
No,
But I'd like to say, see, what it used to be is, I'm just letting you know up front, is employees would come here, we would approve, they would stand up, we would welcome them to the district. So that we as a unit, we as a team are welcoming new people to our organization. That's what we do. We're not here to hire and to analyze. We don't sit on the panel that actually goes through prospective employees and narrows it down to the one or two that we want to get to and then interview them. And then once we interview them, we offer a contract to them, and then we bring it to the board for the approval for us to do this so that we can say, hey, welcome, we support what they're doing and on the organization. Now, you have the right to vote yes or no on whatever you want, and we can continue to do it this way if you want. I just think it's rather messy, my opinion, and I don't think it really serves any purpose. I mean, if you decided that you just don't think it's right for the procedure to be that way, then I guess you can vote no on it absolutely every time.
I just had a question when it came to certain ones because I read the resume and
Well,
I had questions. I did call Christine and we talked about it, but it's just that with that knowledge that I have to say something. I'm just not going to agree and not show my point. That's all I'm doing,
Well,
showing my point.
And that's the other point too.
And you said that we could do that.
And that's the other point too, because we do receive information and the background information as far as resumes and stuff. And I can tell you right now that if you start to delve too deep into that and you get into some certain things, you might end up with a little bit of hoof and mouth disease. I don't think we did tonight, but we could end up with some hoof and mouth disease to where we may cross over the line where we're dipping into something that is private information of theirs that we necessarily shouldn't be sharing with the community. So that's another aspect of it too, that I really don't feel comfortable getting into. That's why I won't bring up. That's why I would, you know, and I guess you tried, I don't know if your question was specific enough and you got the information you needed, but if you ask beforehand, then you have that piece of information. And then if you don't feel comfortable voting on one, then don't vote on it. And see, that's where I would have been fine. Usually what happens is somebody would say, well, I kind of want one pulled, well, because they're not sure about that. So I want just item C, whatever, I'll say C12 because there's not one on here. I want item C12 pulled because I want to. So you may want to vote and approve the rest, pull that one, and maybe you want to vote no against it. That's fine. I'm just trying to lay out, this is what my belief and what my experience tells me and what my knowledge tells me, is this is how we normally do it. It's basically, and it's the same way with the bills. If you notice, it used to be, we have on here now support of the bills received and filed as of August 31st, 2023, okay? That actually used to just say payment of the bills. I think it was Ms. Rayford that asked that the language be changed because the bills are already paid. Okay? The bills are already paid. We can't hold up our vendors and say we're not going to pay our bills until the board approves this. What happens is our business department, they pay the bills. This is in here so that we have a register that we can look through so that we have the opportunity to look at every bill that's been paid. And so that if we run across something, we can say, hey, and you contact the business department, why was John Doe that lives on such and such a street on East Point paid this amount of money for something? What exactly was that? And so that we have the ability to oversee what's going on. Not that we're going to change that bill and not get it paid, but in the end, we can ask the question and say, what was this bill? And based upon our history, before I was even on this board, and what had transpired then, that's actually a good thing to have it in there to remind the board that they need to look at the bills and the bills that are being paid. And that's why that's part of the agenda. I'm just letting you know the historical aspect to this stuff. We can go forward however the board chooses to go forward. Okay?
I want to say.
With that, anybody have any other comments? Because we still got to call a vote on this one.
I do. To Mrs. Rayford's point, then, because we get this in the background, so we see this before it gets to us. I mean, before it gets to the agenda. Are we asking now to take these things out for the consent agenda and just see it in the background without speaking it to the public? Or are we asking them to stay here and continue the consent agenda portion? Because we see this every 2 weeks.
Well, the only thing under there, under the consent agenda that we really are 100%, we have to approve our minutes.
No, I'm talking about.
Yeah, but as far as B and C, could we as board take the position that since the bills are already paid and since the hire is already done, do we just want them as part of the information packet?
Is that something that we can?
Then we don't ever have to address it here. And I would have to check with legal to make sure we don't have to do it. To make sure that it doesn't have to be on the
Because
agenda.
we do see these, when we read the board book, we do see this.
Oh, yeah. We
That's what I'm
see,
saying.
we see all of it, and we always have an informational side and our board packet for the actual meeting.
Right.
Okay, and there's some things, including the informational side, that we don't address here. So is it possible that it could just be less than the informational side? I don't know. Personally, I like it here, just so the public sees that we're at least looking at it. Otherwise, if it's informational, then nobody knows if we're ever looking at the bills.
So do we, just to shed a little clarity, and I apologize for being tardy, just for clarity's sake, when we look at this in board book and we have questions, that's when we get our questions answered prior to this point.
Well, yeah, and that's, wasn't going to bring that up because I see some of that going on here, because in another issue we have coming up that's addressed in it. So
Okay.
I was going to wait on the discussion for that.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, and it's, yeah, a lot of this stuff is just addressing the public. A lot of this stuff we see prior to the meeting. We don't necessarily discuss individually, and that's what John and Dr. Early are basically alluding to. Usually, if we have any questions or concerns, we get those answered prior to this point. So, to Mrs. Rayford's point, then are we the question still remains, do we still have to vote on it? And that's something I think that we as a board should decide from here on out after.
Well, I think we need to call a vote on this one because we've already done it, but
Absolutely.
we can decide how we go forward. And I'll be more than happy to examine what we want to do with consent agenda, but I also want administration to get a hold of our legal counsel to make sure that we
Hey.
cover everything at our meetings that we're required to cover.
I want to say something before we
Yeah.
vote too. I just want to say for 28 years, I've been watching board meetings or at board meetings or, watching my husband on them. And there's been years where meetings would be here 1:30 in the morning because they had to break everything apart. And we've already wasted a half hour pretty much on this. So we need to decide what to do because I didn't sign up for 1:30.
Anything else?
That's AM.
Please call the vote.
Mr. Grunberg,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Dr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes. Mrs. Rayford,
No, I'm sorry.
was that a no?
Yes, it was, no.
Yes, the last one.
Mrs. Richardson,
Yes.
Mrs. Grunberg.
Yes.
Okay, motions carries. Item 6, superintendent's report.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Education, and those of you joining us in the audience and on the live feed this evening. This is the superintendent's report. So my theme this year is moments, those moments that matter. And I'd like to highlight a few of those moments for all of you. This is a student lab in Mrs. Peters' chemistry class at East Point High School, where students were doing some amazing science experiments on the pennies from the staff of East Point High School. And these moments and science experiment, that's when you get to feel and be involved in your learning. That's when you really remember it. We've got some amazing first grade staff working on story problems at Crescentwood in both Miss Perkins and Miss Smith's classrooms. And what I loved about these ladies is they actually had the kids graph the results of the story problems and how they felt about their first day of school. As of today, we have 180 kindergartners enrolled between Crescentwood and Forest Park. It is an enrollment increase for us in the kindergarten age. And we are seeing the fruits of our labor in the work of the Early Learning Center. Our children are coming to school more prepared than teachers have normally anticipated. So we're actually having conversations with kindergarten teachers about how to increase the rigor of kindergarten and start moving into first grade or more advanced material. So the Board of Education's decision to support early learning in our community is having a benefit. Teaching and learning at the elementary PE, this is a great example of some amazing moments where Mr. Page took his gym classes outside, and we have boxes and boxes of PE and gym equipment from the Wayne State Building Healthy Schools grant. Here is a labor of love of fifth grade band. This Board of Education took action a few years ago to bring back fifth grade band. Here we have Teacher Butler with beginning band students. And I want to make sure you know that this isn't even all of the children that are enrolled in band and music at East Point Middle School. We've been bringing back music and working on that for the past 5 years. So to start to see the instruments in the children's hands and children getting fitted with musical instruments. The fight is on at lunchtime, and it's a good one to get into the media center. Our new media center furniture is filling the media centers across East Point Community Schools. And the students at the high school are lining up to get into the media center during their lunchtime or any time because they love the new media center furniture. There are small vestibules and small work areas and children with books at lunch in the media center. There was actually a tremendous disappointment. We had to close the media center for the NWEA testing, and students had to go back to the cafeteria, and they were disappointed to have to go back. They want to be in that library. Volleyball swept Lincoln the other night with a 3-set victory. It was a great night of Shamrock sports. What was also great about that evening is the Boys and Girls Club has launched their football program. And so our entire parking lot at East Point High School was full of families watching their children engage in football, full of families and fans supporting Our Lady Shamrocks. Congratulations to them. We hosted our first game at Memorial Field, and as Dan Zander knows, it was not our best victory, but there were some amazing plays that occurred. Some other highlights about our first home game is we had a pep band in the stands. Okay, we haven't had a pep band in the stands in about 10 years in East Point Community Schools. It was a great night to see children who began their band experience in 5th grade are now playing instruments at our field. We did score a goal, and this is the vision, is that we actually have families cheering in the stands for our players. And how about those Shamrock cheerleaders looking amazing and learning how to cheer MHSSA sideline competitive cheer. You see, we don't take these things for granted here at East Point Community Schools because athletics and music matters to children. Science experiments matter. Here you have moments of students taking in the upper left-hand corner their iReady assessments. Then you have a young man who's reading his book after his assessment was done. Young lady in the lower left-hand corner working on a drawing, and then children outside enjoying recreational activities. This evening, I informed the Board of Education at the beginning of the year that we will be giving regular updates on the status of our strategic plan implementation throughout the year. I'd like to highlight and welcome 2 guests in our audience today. Sarah Belvedere is our assigned support from the Macomb Intermediate School District. And my favorite MDE staff member, please don't tell Dr. Rice, but Dr. Tracy Teasley is the partnership liaison, and Dr. Teasley's job is to remove the barriers and the walls of the MDE to help our school district be able to navigate the agency. And we are grateful that both of these ladies have taken the time out of their evening to be with us as a school board as we review our update on our strategic plan. What has been passed out to the Board of Education, and I'll kind of take you through. You know, we spent 6 months planning our strategic plan here in East Point Community Schools, and it involved stakeholder feedback, a in-depth data analysis, as painful as some of that work was. There was lots of reading, lots of homework. We looked at a number of transformational school districts across the United States and came up with our 5 goal areas. We developed this mission that East Point Community Schools is the heart of learning, caring, and support for our community, where we empower students to embrace learning, achieve their personal best, and develop a healthy, emotional, social, and physical well-being. It is grounded in the vision that in a partnership with our community, we will be able to empower each student to become a lifelong learner who strives to be a responsible, productive, and engaged student. And then our motto of our strategic plan, empower, care, and succeed. To that end, we also developed 3 portraits, the portrait of a system and the key fundamentals of a strong system that can support community-centered public education. We developed the portrait of an adult, the key adult profiles that are what we need in all of the staff that we hire and all of the leaders that we charge with leading transformational public school education. Then the team also crafted the portrait of a graduate. What is the final product of our public institution? What do we want to put out into the world? And these are the components of the portrait of a graduate of East Point. The board did define and approve 5 key goal areas for our strategic plan to be implemented. The first is student growth and achievement. The second is learning environment and supports. The third is working environment and high-quality staff. The fourth is family and community partnerships. And the fifth is resources, and that's finance, facilities, and technology. So some work that then happened with action teams is each of the 5 goal areas had an action team. And these action teams unpacked all of the strategies for each goal area. So what the Board of Education has been provided with this evening is called a Gantt chart. And what a Gantt chart does is it takes each strategy or each part of the implementation and plots it out month by month so that you can clearly see the work that we will be doing in the first year of the implementation of the strategic plan. Unfortunately, I cannot get this 5-page document to fit into a slideshow very clean. So the board has been provided, and what board you will see here is that as you go through this board strategic plan, each strategy will have a green box on a month. And that's when our school improvement team will expect to be looking at data. We'll expect to have reports out from implementation committees or from departments. And so I'll call to the board's attention some of the items that are in the August as you go down the August column. And we'll take a look at some of that work that has happened here this evening. Part of the next step in the implementation of the strategic plan was the realignment of the organizational structure of the central office team. And this board knows that we've been talking about this work since about April, and how much this superintendent likes the activity of responsibility charting, where each job description is very clearly articulates what components of district work are on each member of the team's area of responsibility. So the first goal area is curriculum and instruction. And as you go down through August, or as you just look at the PowerPoint here this evening, I want to highlight that we have implemented the Art of Education, a K-12 art curriculum and resource. The board adopted iReady, K-8 mathematics. We also adopted a 9 through 12 mathematics curriculum, a 9 through 12 English language arts curriculum. And the team is exploring more possible adoptions. Also, work that has happened at the onset of this year is we have reset the professional learning communities, and there is a renewed focus in looking at student data and asking the 4 questions across the district. Training has been happening with our leaders of all of our schools. We also have been implementing and will continue high dosage tutoring, and you'll see that as well in goal area 2. When we look at goal area 2, a big part of our work is the multi-tiered system of support. A lot of work was done in the prior school year on attendance and behavior tiered pyramids of support. This year we are also working on revising the student codes of conduct. A first step in that was to look at the dress code and to ensure that the dress code was written in student-friendly language and in a positive statement about why certain attire is not as good as other attire, instead of just saying, no, we don't want it, helping our families and our children understand why we might have an expectation. We also have a renewed focus in restorative justice. Restorative justice has been implemented here in then East Detroit, now East Point Community Schools, for about 9 years. And we found that the high school campus had moved quite a bit away from the restorative justice work, and we have a renewed focus in implementation of that program at our secondary campuses. Goal area 3, working environment and high quality staff. As this Board of Education knows, we are looking and hope to bring forward soon the hiring of an HR director, as well as we did an administrative retreat and began the launch of some of our diversity, equity, and inclusion work with our administrators this summer. So as the board looks at what is page number 2 that is flipped over, you can see that a lot of work happened in goal area 3. training for administrators at the administrative retreat, the implementation of a retreat for tone setting across our organization. We are working on publishing and printing some staff handbooks. We've done a lot of work in the EFE salary scale. This board has approved the compression of a 30-step scale to a 15-step scale. The board has also approved longevity returning to our staff. And we have a renewed focus in PLC. So as you can see, a number of items have already happened here for the district in goal area 3. And in goal area 4, I'd like to big highlight because the work of our athletics director and activities director, that is a position that did not exist before. It was added as a result of this board's strategic planning. We also have a grant with Wayne State University for building healthy schools. And as I alluded to at the beginning of this presentation, an entire office was full of recess and physical education materials for our children to play. I firmly believe that the key to social emotional learning is bringing back physical education, bringing back play for children. We learn to resolve conflict through structured play. And so this was also a big focus in goal area number 4, with getting wraparound services and our community representatives involved. And as I mentioned also, the Boys and Girls Club is open. We continue to work with them on programming for our children of East Point Community Schools and our children of the city of East Point. The East Point Bond I'm highlighting as work on goal area 5. We have, as the board knows, been reviewing our secondary technology plan. We did get a new technology contract. We also achieved the passing of the bond proposal, $36.4 million towards playgrounds, parking lots, air conditioning, culinary kitchen at the high school, safety and security. We will be, and I would welcome the community to be involved in these conversations. There will be a committee developed to make a recommendation by January about the grade spans and the investments in the school buildings of our community. The district will be reviewing if our current structure of K2, 3-5, middle school, and high school will suit the needs of families and children in our community. And we will be asking for feedback to design what will suit the needs. Many communities have K-5 schools, some have K-6 schools. There are lots of different models. The important piece is finding out what our families want to see us do in service to them and their children. We will also be having some conversations specifically targeting East Point High School over the course of this year. It is a very large, very expensive campus. It is approaching 100 years of being in existence, and we will need to make some decisions about the footprint of that campus and how we choose to strategically invest in it. Finally, we will be having a committee for the East Point High School campus to also review the instructional service delivery model. We believe that there are opportunities for us to be innovators in the high school education landscape, and it will be our charge this year to explore what other possibilities exist for educating secondary students. So finally, I'd like to bring some pictures to the board and to the public about some of the sinking fund money that we have used. We have new classroom doors, visible coded locks so staff can see if the door is locked or open. We've got brand new cubbies, counters, floors, walls have been painted. Some of our schools don't even feel like the same schools. They feel fresh. It's like the windows are open and the doors are open, and they are becoming beautiful learning spaces. There is a stark contrast between the schools that had construction done this summer and the remaining school that is still on the list for next year. But but our spaces are really looking wonderful. And it isn't until I go back and look at the before pictures that I remember how far we have come as an organization and how much has been accomplished in our strategic plan in only the beginning stages of year one. So I'm very proud of the work that the district has done in our first report for the Board of Education on our strategic plan. Before I review the coming events, does the Board of Education have any questions about the district's strategic plan and the Gantt chart that you've been provided with this evening? Everybody's in awe.
Well, I was just going to make a comment. You need to fix your mic. I was just going to make a comment. If anybody wants to really know how much better the buildings are looking to previous, like 15 years ago or so, have Mr. Kerry Weissop give you a guided tour of the buildings and point out all the new stuff. I think he's probably pretty excited about what he sees in those buildings too, compared to what way it used to be back when he was a full-time employee in the district. So I couldn't help but think that because he used to come to us and tell us how we needed to do this to keep the tiles abated and all the other extras, because everything was so old in the buildings, you had to do extra work just to maintain what was in there. And to see all this new stuff now in there, all the new tile, all the new wood, all the new, what do you call it, in the resource rooms.
Cubbies, yep.
Everything. I mean, just the buildings, the outside, the boards, the electronic boards now. The canopies on the, the canopies on the front of the buildings, everything is just, within the last, geez, what is it, about 5 years?
Yeah.
Maybe?
3 years of big construction, yes.
At the one, because the canopies in the doorways.
Had just started
4
at
years
the
were the first
onset
thing,
of
right?
the pandemic.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was the first thing. So if you took before and after pictures just in 3 years, it is rather remarkable of what's being done, so.
And
I
it's
got done in high school,
remarkable
but
what you
we'll
can't
work on
see happening yet with so many curriculums. We've been hungry for a guaranteed and viable curriculums that are not written on the backs of our teachers for a long time. So great work is in progress here as it pertains to the board's strategic plan.
Yeah, and even though, God bless his soul, he's not here anymore, Harvey Creech isn't here anymore, if anybody would like to actually look at the buildings and see what's going on in the inside, contact the administrator's office, superintendent's office, and I'm quite sure that any member of the public who wants to see how their tax dollars are being spent, we'd be more than happy to show them.
Absolutely.
So.
I just wanted to say, as a person that was on the strategic plan committee, being in the room and able to actually go through and create the strategic plan with all of the community, the children, teachers, counselors, it was a great experience. But it's even better to see the strategic plan being put in action. That's the best part of it. It's not that this is just done and put on a shelf and we've not done anything with it. It's good to see that it's actually being used and that there is buy-in from the district and from our administration, from our teachers, from our students to see great things happening. Because seeing the children in those gorgeous spaces is fabulous. So I'm glad that they're enjoying them.
Thank you. And I think our guests in the audience, Dr. Teasley and Sarah Belvedere, can attest to the district's conviction that our strategic plan lead our work through our partnership, through our continuous cycle for improvement, and they can attest to the fact that this leadership team has pushed strongly that this strategic plan would guide all of our work going forward. Thank you for your head nodding out there in the audience. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'd like to remind the community of a few upcoming events. We do have our lower elementary curriculum nights tomorrow evening. Then we have varsity volleyball at Madison at 5:30 p.m. On September 14th, we have our upper elementary curriculum nights. And then varsity football at Warren Woods Tower Saturday at 1 p.m. Our secondary curriculum nights at both East Point High School and the campus of East Point Middle School will be on the 21st and Gleaner's food distribution has been added for 9:30 a.m. on September 21st at East Point Middle School. Thank you very much, and that concludes the superintendent's report this evening.
Thank you. Next, we have hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard? Does anyone wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll open and close that at 7:20. Okay, under discussion action, Board of Education, we have increased grade span of East Point Virtual Academy.
Yes, please. Thank you. Good evening, Board of Education. This evening, we are asking for the Board of Education to support the extension of East Point Virtual Academy. For the prior year, we offered the East Point Virtual Academy as a 9 through 12 program. We would like to extend it to 6th grade through 12th grade.
Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to expand the increased grade span of East Point Virtual Academy.
Support.
Questions? Discussion?
Yes. With this expansion, what's the feeling of the students? Because I've heard some parents complain about they're not getting enough help.
So for this year, the East Point Virtual Academy, for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, it will not be an open enrollment to get into the campus. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade will only for this year, as we review and look at it. The rationale for opening up the East Point Virtual Academy is sometimes there are students who are suspended from the academic program. Sometimes, unfortunately, there are students who violate Michigan law or the Student Code of Conduct and have to come before the Board of Education for an expulsion. What we are looking to do by expanding East Point Virtual Academy is we are looking to not stop educating children even when they make a choice that may keep them out of school. In the traditional school setting, a child might be suspended for a behavior and be denied an educational opportunity for anywhere from 5 to 10 days, anywhere from 1 to 10 days. We'd like to try to minimize the impact on children. When children make mistakes, our team feels strongly that they should still be allowed to continue to learn. And so when we have students that would be withheld educational opportunities beyond 10 days, it would be by the discretion of the Office of the Superintendent if we would continue to educate them in the East Point Virtual Academy. What this is doing is giving us another option. We believe in supporting children, and we believe that the East Point Virtual Academy can expand its services to all of our secondary children, so that should they not be able to attend school beyond a suspension, a long-term suspension or an expulsion, they would still have an educational opportunity afforded to them.
Mr. Roscoe.
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes. Mr. Grunberg.
Yes.
Dr. Early.
Yes.
Mrs. Rayford.
Yes.
Mrs. Richardson.
Yes.
Mrs. Grunberg.
Yes.
Okay, next item is contract addendums.
Yes, please. Thank you, Board of Education. This evening, you see them all separated out, non-affiliate, EduStaff, EXA, EDESA, and Local 120. At our last board meeting, the board approved the longevity for the teacher EFE scale, an increase of compensation for pay on preparation periods, a $3,000 bonus for ed specialist or PhD degrees in the East Point Federation contract, as well as a 2% increase using ESSER 3 funds at a December 10th payroll. The contract addendums would continue to honor what was already extended to those collective bargaining units and non-affiliate contracts, and it extends the 2% bonus paid out on or around December 10th to all of the rest of the members of East Point Community Schools, so that our teachers will have their benefit. It continues the 5% end-of-year benefit that we have afforded all of these contracts across the district.
Is there a motion to approve?
Can I make a motion to approve them all as a group? Do we need to go separately since we're asking for all of them to be approved?
However you want to word your motion, word your motion.
You may want to keep them separate. We do have a board member that has a family member in one of those employment groups, and that board member may abstain from voting at that particular time.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I make a motion that we accept
Would
the
you like,
contract.
I'm sorry, would you like to know the groups that you can combine?
Yes.
You can combine non-affiliate, EXA, ADESA, and Local 120.
Non-affiliate, EXA, ADESA, and Local 120, and leave out EDGE staff. Okay.
Would you say leave out? EDGE staff?
It would be EDGE staff that we want.
EDGE staff would be left out.
I was going to make that notation.
I anticipated as much.
Okay, so I would like to make the motion that we accept the contract addendums for non-affiliate, ECSAA, EDESA, and Local 120.
Support.
Questions, comments? Please call the vote.
Okay, Dr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Grunberg,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes. Mrs. Rayford,
Yes.
Mrs. Richardson, Mrs. Grunberg,
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion for EDGE staff?
I would like to make a motion that we accept the addendum for EDGE staff.
Support.
Questions or comments? Please call the vote.
Dr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mr. Grunberg,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes. Mrs. Rayford,
Abstain.
Mrs. Richardson, Mrs. Grunberg.
Yes.
Okay, next item is MASB Delegate Assembly Certification of Delegates. We get two and two alternates this time as well, too. Is there anybody that really wants to do it? I mean, that's the first question.
I have a question. Is
Yes.
this what I talked about earlier when I asked you?
No, this is actually at the conference where there's a delegate assembly and we have two representatives that go there and vote for us and all that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different.
All right.
She was asking about the legislative county thing, yeah. Because I know there's gonna be, I know I'm going, who's going to the conference
Who's
first
going?
off?
That's what's important.
I'm gonna be at the conference. I think it's in Lansing this year.
Yeah.
It's in Lansing.
In Lansing.
So who's
You
going?
going, Cassie?
You don't know.
Addie, are you going?
Okay. You're planning on going, Ed?
Yes.
And Robert's going.
I'm going.
So there's four of
Mary,
us?
are you going?
No.
No. Okay.
So four for sure are going, so there's two and two, right?
I'm having knee replacement. I'm not going.
She'll be virtual.
I'll be virtual.
Oh, you're doing virtual?
Yeah.
So there's three of us?
3 confirmed.
3 confirmed going.
So
I'll make the 4th.
there you go.
There you go.
There
So
you
you're
go.
4 now.
Yeah. So you all, who want to?
So that's why I want to know who really wants to be the delegates, because that'll be the two
I'll be
assigned-
one of
I'll
them.
be one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you two, and then we'll be alternates. Okay, I would move,
Robert and Ed.
I'm gonna put it in a motion. I would move that certification of MASB delegates will be as following. Mr. Ed Williams and Mr. Robert Roscoe will be the district's 2 delegates, and Mr. Grunberg will be the 2 alternates.
I'll
That's my
support
motion.
that.
Questions, discussion? Please call a vote.
Okay, Mr. Grunberg,
Yes?
Dr. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes. Mr. Roscoe,
Yes.
Mrs. Rayford,
Yeah.
pardon me?
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Richardson and Mrs. Grunberg.
Yes.
Okay, next we have Board of Education Draft of Code of Ethics. Now, I'm going to give you just a little bit of background on this. As a board, I think we talked about at one point, I can't remember if it was when we were doing our board self-evaluation or what, we really wanted to start looking at the board's policies and how we operate as a board. We noticed there was probably a bit of a weakness in code of ethics, and there was also a bit of a weakness in orientation, I think it was. So 2 committees were established. Code of ethics was chaired by Dr. Early. Orientation is yet to meet, but they will be meeting soon. They already have a date, is by Mr. Ed Williams. So what happened at the committee is the committee felt that it was important that the whole board be engaged if we're going to do the code of ethics. So that's why it was brought to the board here. And at this point, what I'm going to do is, actually, I want to turn it over to the chair of the committee. She will go ahead and maybe give you a brief introduction as to how the draft was compiled, how that came about, and then she will read each individual one. Just so you're ready, everybody can be prepared. I'm going to start down on the left, recognizing people as she reads each individual item, and go down the line, starting at the left, working this way, because we want to handle each individual item. So we'll start here, go that direction on number 1, number 2, we'll start down here, go that direction, and so on, back and forth on each one, just so we can be efficient and get this done. So she's going to read the first one. I'm going to recognize Mrs. Grunberg down there first to see if she has any comments or questions about that particular item, and then we'll continue to come down the line until we get to Ms. Richardson. Okay. Then she'll read number 2. We'll start with Ms. Richardson, and then we'll go down the line this way if there's any questions or comments. Obviously, there's 3 people here that already sat on the committee, so we probably aren't going to have a whole lot to add, maybe able to offer some clarification or something. Yeah. Responses to questions maybe, but that's about it. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. Early. And
I just have a question. This is just
no action.
Just
this
discussion.
Is a draft.
Yeah.
This is just to help us to come up with another draft for in the future to be brought to the board. I should have clarified that right.
Yeah.
Good question. To be brought to the board for approval later on, at a later date. Okay? But we felt it important, or the committee overall felt it important that we engage the whole board before we even come up with a final draft.
Exactly, because we want to make sure we have everybody's opinion and their thoughts on the Board of Ethics.
And you have a copy, in our copy in front of you. So if you'd like to put it in front of you so we can, because it's already, 7:35, we want to move along here. Okay,
first of all, I want to let everybody know that this was not just the 3 board members coming up with something. We went to the NASB and used their Action for Ethical Guidelines. We went to Oak Parks, we used Birmingham, we used Bloomfield, we used the national guidelines, and we used, what is it called, the board, what was the one, I brought in the board book from the state of Michigan.
MASB.
MASB.
State Board.
Yes,
handbook.
the MASB State Board. So it's not something that we just said, yes, check, this is what we're going to do. We had several places that we went to get some examples on how we wanted our ethics to look, because we know that we needed to make changes to our ethics and in our Board of Ethics, in our Board of Education codes. These are just asking all of our board members to let us know your opinion on what you think about these and where they may need changes, where they're coming up short at, where we may be long-winded at, that type of thing. Okay? Okay, number 1. Oh, let me say this. As a member of the board, I will promote the best interests of the school district as a whole and will adhere to the following ethical standards and principles. Number 1, I will represent all board district constituents honestly and equitably, equally, and refuse to surrender my responsibilities to any partisan principal group or interests.
Okay, Mrs. Grunberg, anything you'd like to add to that?
Nope. Nope.
Ms. Rayford? Questions or comments?
Well, not on this one, but when we get there, I will.
Okay, that's good.
No. No.
I don't have anything to add. Mr. Williams?
No, it's clear.
Ms. Richardson?
I just looked at 2 words that caught my attention, honesty and equally. and refuse to surrender my responsibilities to any partial principal, group, or interest, means that someone break that down a little bit for, because those two words, equally, surrender, and honestly.
No political affiliate.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I can
So that
explain.
you won't let a political party or a special interest sway your vote for something.
Okay, comments. You know, that's what I'm saying.
Similar is, you're basically saying I can't be bought.
No,
I'm here to perform my duty as a board member, and there's no partisan group out there or anything like that
Me.
that's going to sway my opinion. I'm here to do my job, and that's it.
She's good.
Good?
She's good.
Okay.
If you don't do that to each other.
Okay.
Honestly, equally, and surrender your responsibilities. When you tell me I have a responsibility, and then try to talk me off out of it. That's what I'm saying. That's what I took it as.
Oh, no. Okay, number 2?
I will represent all school district. Oh,
No.
that's number
No,
one.
avoid.
I will avoid any conflicts of interest prohibited by law or appearance of such that could result from my position, and will not use my membership on the board for personal gain where contrary to the interests of the school district.
Ms. Richardson?
I agree with that. This is for everyone, right?
On the board,
Yeah, we're going down through. We're just trying to get our opinion on each one so we know where to go on the next draft. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I agree. Says I will avoid any. I think we could have used a little different word, but to just make it, I will avoid. I mean, it's.
What you would put, like, because I will avoid it, because sometimes you may have a conflict.
I will
so
not
you have to
engage
make
in.
sure you don't.
Yeah, okay. Avoid is good. I just seem like it needs an.
I still got it circled on mine.
Yeah.
I still got it circled on mine
or-
for future reference.
But sometimes to avoid it, you do that, but you don't have to engage in it.
So
Right.
you would like to add engage to,
Right,
I would like to avoid
it's
or
a
engage?
Yeah, avoid or engage. That's-
You just put or engage, right? Okay.
Okay, I have nothing.
I have nothing.
Mr. Roscoe?
I have nothing.
Ms. Rafer?
Who determines what the conflict is? Because that could be a matter of perception.
Where it says we're prohibited by law. or
Right.
appearance. So first of all, the law will.
Well, no, I get that. I'm just looking at the way it's worded. It just seems like there could be something else there other than conflict.
Well, I think some of these, in essence, I guess you could say is, in this one here, to me, I would take that as, of course, you're not going to be involved, we should not be involved in any conflict of interest by law, right? But there's also other things where it may appear there's a conflict of interest where you're not necessarily breaking a law. But we should be cognizant of the fact of what we're doing so that we're not, you know what I'm saying, so it doesn't appear that there's a conflict of interest. I'll give you an example. Years ago, before any of you others were on the board, we actually had a gentleman who ran for the board, owned a flower shop in town, okay? He had been doing business with the district before he was elected, okay? Because of the fact, even though he was all above board and legal, he made sure that it was out there publicly and everybody knew, because it could still carry the appearance that something, even though legally he was doing everything, but it could still carry the appearance that there could be a conflict of interest.
Okay, so add the word appearance, because that.
I think it's in there, isn't
It's
it?
in there.
It's in there.
Right there.
Law
Yeah.
or appearance.
Law or appearance.
Okay.
There you got it.
I missed
That's what I'm saying. It's more,
That's okay.
the appearance is more, yeah, that's where the
Yeah, it's in
discretion
there.
comes in and, you know.
Spot on.
Okay, Ms. Grunberg,
Yes.
you good? Okay, number 3.
I will recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual, and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public meeting of the board.
Okay, Mr. Grunberg.
It's good for me.
Rayford?
I don't have a problem with it. I'm just trying to understand the basis. considering the fact that it's understood that a majority vote is imperative for anything, I guess I'm not quite understanding the basis for that one.
You know why we spelled it out in here?
That's not what she said.
We have no legal authority. I think that's
As an individual, it
understood.
says.
Yeah.
That can make decisions. That's like, I can't go out and say, yeah, the board's gonna pay for the books in 4th grade somewhere. You know what I'm saying? I can't do that. It's a majority of the
No, I
vote.
understand that. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
It's understood that as an individual, we don't have any legal authority. At least I thought it was.
See, as a new board member coming in,
You need to recognize that.
they may
Right.
not know that.
Okay.
Well, and not only that, plus these are public records as well too, so if the public ever goes in, they can realize that no one board member has any legal authority. So we
Right.
can cite our policy and say, hey, go look at this because you can see it's spelled right out there.
I
And
think
some of what you
we can
put in
do anything,
policy
but-
is you're spelling out
Okay.
And if
exactly
you,
what you do.
and if you look at it, it's a 7-man governance, and each board member have 1 vote.
Right.
Okay, so, Ms. Roscoe?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good. Mr. Williams?
Good.
Ms. Richardson? Okay, now we're in number 4.
I will take no private action that might compromise the board of or administration, and we respect the confidentiality of privileged information, including but not limited to communications from the superintendent and communication between board members in the form of text or email. This privileged information is not to be posted on public platforms. The board recognizes that this does not remove or deny the right for these communications to be subject to FOIA. Freedom of Information Act. We can, yeah.
In parentheses?
Yeah,
put
we
in the
can put it.
parentheses.
No alphabet soup, sorry.
Hey, Ms. Richardson?
That's fine. When you said that, I had that when it says form of text or email, that's how we're supposed to respond to the superintendent or not
No.
No, we're saying we're not going to
Make them public.
make things
to?
public.
Make public.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, I'm good with it.
Well, I took this to also mean that if there's any, like if I text you back and forth, you don't share publicly what I text to you.
Right.
And I wouldn't share publicly what you text to me.
That's what,
But we both agree and we both understand that if somebody wanted to FOIA what we're texting to each other, they could.
they could, yeah.
And the same with emails.
If it's dealing with board business, they can FOIA the emails or the text.
So anybody who texts privately one-to-one or amongst ourselves here, if we're agreeing to this, we're agreeing that we really should not share that on public platforms.
But don't we have a, email or text with the MA, whatever?
The school
We have our
board.
own school board, right?
Right, but what I'm saying is people can text us, the members of the public can text us or email us back and forth, right? But what we're saying, according to this, it sounds like, is everybody who sits up here at this table, if we text or email back and forth to each other about individual things or whatever communications we have, superintendent to us to superintendent or amongst ourselves, that should remain private and confidential
Under the-
to us,
Right.
unless somebody actually, under Freedom of Information Act, requests that information, which legally then they would be entitled to.
Right.
Okay? So it sounds to me like if you agree to this, that's what you're agreeing to, is that if I'm communicating back and forth with you about something, you're asking me questions about a board packet or the superintendent or whatever, that conversation may go back and forth, You're not going to share that conversation publicly. But if somebody wanted, under Freedom of Information, to get that conversation, they could. So that's all, I'm just trying to make sure I got it spelled out right here. Because that's what I am. Is that what you,
That's what
that's
yeah,
what you understand?
That's
Okay.
what I understand.
So I'm good, and then,
I'm good.
We good. I'm good.
Who determines confidentiality?
I think this pretty much spells it out.
Not really.
Communication amongst us,
Any communication.
any communication amongst us.
On the board's thing, on the A, I mean, for the.
You mean the
each
board emails?
Yeah, email.
Emails.
Email.
Because we all have a East Point email address.
We all have an East Point. I have one.
So that's what I'm saying, but the public can communicate back and forth with us on that email. They can communicate back and forth with me on my phone number, my private email.
Yeah. Yeah,
We're
you can do
talking
that.
about communication amongst us.
You know, I'm new, I haven't had texting me and.
So I think, yeah, but I think this spells it out. I mean, if we communicate amongst ourselves, we should not share those communications with the public. Unless they FOIA it.
I think Mary's on.
No, I'm not saying that because this is not very clear, and it seems rather pointed to me.
What do you mean?
What do you mean it's pointed to you? It's not pointed to
I
you.
don't understand. What do you mean?
Well, because of prior conversations about me posting information shared in an email.
This is
When it
now
was,
and moving
excuse me,
forward.
Well, hang
I
on.
understand that. Would you let me finish?
Go ahead, I apologize.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
That's why I said it seems rather pointed to me,
Like I said, I don't understand why.
because of prior conversations.
What prior conversation? I don't know what you're talking about.
Specifically, when you emailed me about matters that I did not think were any of your business, and then you got upset because I told you if you didn't stop, I would post it, and I did. That's what I'm saying. I didn't consider that a confidential email.
So you made a threat?
Was that the one that I
Well, there were
sent you
several.
that?
There were several.
I mean, was that one? Because I remember I sent one that I had down at the bottom, I spelled out that I expected that email be confidential, and I did see that posted.
And I saw that as a bullying tactic, and I was not.
Okay, that's fine. So you're not with it, Mrs. Grunberg?
I'm with it.
Okay. Next.
I will abide by a majority decision of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels. Majority decisions after votes are expected to be supported by all board members. For this one, I think we really need to add this to number 3.
That's the part I didn't know. Majority decisions after votes are expected to be supported by all the board members.
Well, it's 5.
Why
Let's,
do we have a yes or a no?
No,
Wait a
so
minute.
No,
This is what
it's
she's
after
doing,
the
and
vote.
she's saying that's a good comment, but wait till we get back to you because you're commenting on something. So read it and then let's let Mrs. Grunberg go first because she's next on the tally.
I
So
will-
number 5.
I will abide by the majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels. Majority decisions after votes are expected to be supported by all board members.
Okay.
Yes.
You're good with that?
Yep.
Ms. Rayford?
No.
Do you feel like stating why or no?
Well, I can't really say I would support something that I don't know what it is at this point, even if it is a majority decision, especially if I have a differing opinion about how it impacts student achievement.
So I think what this is, I don't want to speak to it, but I'll wait my turn. Mr. Roscoe?
I'm good with it.
I want to speak to this.
Yeah, you wanted to talk about 5 and 3.
Yeah, I think that 5 and 3 because they go together because if there's a majority of the vote, then the decision is made, and so you support, even if you don't agree, as a board, we're supposed to support the decision of the board. If you don't think that the curriculum is good, then we need to discuss it and see if there's changes to be made, but you can't go out and say, those changes are crazy, that board is nuts, whatever. You have to abide by the decision of the board because that's the decision that we made.
Collective.
Because
Yeah,
we can-
as a board, because not one person is
On that.
bigger than the board.
Exactly.
We didn't agree to disagree, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, you're talking about 5 and 3 being together, and I think that's probably something we should look at because maybe we can come up with a wording where those could be. And that kind of brings up a point too, because when this was listed, I believe we were drawing from about 5 different things.
Yeah, we were.
So these things were actually drawn from 5 different things. This was not something that we just came up on our own and said, well, we want to enact something here that nobody else is doing because of such and such. No, these are basically, we looked at other formats and what they did, and we may have changed a little bit of wording, but as far as this one is concerned, I'd like to, I'll make it as brief as I can. I'd like to give an example, and this is one true to life to me. The very first time before anybody else besides myself was on this board, we voted to pass schools of choice, okay? Now, there's 2 different varieties of school choices. One is schools of choice in Macomb County, and one is schools of choice for bordering counties, okay? At that time, and since then, I've always voted no on schools of choice. We can have a long debate about that at another time as to why, okay? But when I voted no as far as schools of choice, I was in the minority, okay? I lost. I was approached within days at the auditorium at the high school at a play by a member of the public. And a member of the public asked me, they said, and they had their reasons for not supporting it, quite different than my reasons, right? And they approached me and they wanted to have me open up and discuss it with them. My comment to them was, did you follow the discussion at the board meeting? Did you follow the vote at the board meeting? And they said, yes. I said, okay, I have nothing further to say about it then. That's where I do my speaking, is at the board meeting, and at the board meeting only. That is it, okay? Then, the other side of that too, not only do you not, undercut, I guess you could say, or speak poorly of a decision by the majority, it's expected as a board member that you make sure that what is ever is voted on by the majority is also implemented as effectively as possible. Then that becomes your role as a board member. Okay, this board has decided to do this, so as a board member, I'm going to make sure that we do this the right way, okay? So the second part of that story, they voted, when they voted it, they voted to not open it up to unlimited seats, which I think you can attest to the fact that if you have limited seats as far as schools of choice is concerned, you have like a 2-week window in the spring to where you can get students, okay? Well, when we voted for it for the first time, me as the guy who voted against schools of choice, hate to say it, but I knew that wasn't going to work. So that 2-week window came and went. We got no students. So me, I could have sat back and said, yeah. Even though I lost on the vote, I won, right? I could have said that. That's not my job as a board member. My job as a board member is to make sure it's implemented as effective as possible. So when I saw that, I immediately contacted administration at that time, and I told them, I said, do you guys realize what you did? You only opened it for limited seats, which only gave you that 2-week window. If you would have opened it for unlimited seats, you would have had not only that window, plus all of a summer, like 2 weeks into the fall, which later in the summer and fall is where most people are making their decision where their students are going to go. I could have said nothing and walked away. But then I would have been denying my responsibility as a board member, which is to make sure that what the majority voted on gets implemented the best it possibly can. That's my story. That's how I feel about it. And that's why I feel very strongly about that one. And once again, it was brought from someplace else. I did not ask for that to be put on that piece of paper. It was there. Okay? I think we were going this way, Mr. Williams.
I'm good.
I have a question. My thing is, most of you have been on the board for a while, and it appears that if I keep saying, all I'm here is to say yes or whatever, but while retaining the right to seek change in such decisions through ethical and constructive channel, majority decisions after votes are expected to be supported. So I'm supposed to just go along.
No, ask a ton of questions before the meeting, ask your administrators, talk to your fellow board members, get as much information as you can, gather it on the internet. I don't care where you get it from. Get as much information. That we address that later on, I think, in one of these too. Come to this meeting as prepared as you can to ask questions and discuss things. No.
Okay. No, because, Ms. Richardson, if you have
but here.
If you say, no, I don't like that, and you call me and say, Dr. Early, look, this is how I feel about this. This is why I feel this way. You may sway my opinion because you brought something to me that, to my mind, that I would have never even thought of. So it's not that you're gonna rubber stamp and say yes to everything.
And that's the thing I didn't want, I feel like I'm just here to say yes or no.
And you're not.
No, that's not
You're
what
not.
this is.
You have the right to say no to whatever it is that you want to say no to, and then if you feel, because I have done that. If I felt strong enough about something, I would call somebody else and say, give me some clarity and tell me, what am I missing?
So so that's where the seek the change in such a.
Right,
Yeah.
but once the board has made the vote and it's 5-2 or 6-1 or 4-3, then we abide by what that is.
What the vote was.
What the vote was.
Clarification, after
Yeah,
clarification.
but don't just come and say, yeah, I'm gonna just say yeah because that's what the.
Okay,
Like-
so, but that's going to be included in 3 wording, 3 and 5 is going to be together.
Yeah,
We're gonna
the
try to
the notes
figure out a
made,
better
yeah,
way to
notes made.
put it, yeah, that's
All
what,
right.
that's what I was asking, if we can find a better way to write that.
I have to say something. You know, I hear that a lot here on this board, and I've been here for almost 6 years. Everyone seeks change on this board, but I hear a lot of rubber stamping. I think our ethics are that we're trying to make this board better, this community better for our children and our teachers. And I find it offensive every time I'm on this diocese here, somebody's rubber stamping. We work real hard to get this job done. And let's respect each other as board members.
Okay, would you?
But I find it offensive that every time someone wants to say, oh, they're rubber stamping.
Would you define
Because
your
rubber stamping is like you just said. You're seeking a change, but you feel that the rest of us are just here rubber stamping.
Just
I
to
just
say
want to
yes.
know if
Just to
I'm
say yes, but-
expected to rubber
but
stamp
that's- this is
because
my
I
No,
don't know.
absolutely not.
Okay, That was it.
You
That
have
would
a
be
right,
my thing.
Absolutely
you have
not.
a right to seek change like we have a right to seek change, but the rest of us working just as hard as you are, or anyone else on this diocese.
Okay, rubber stamping, okay, so we know.
Thank you.
Okay, next, number 6, I believe it is.
I will encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members, and I will participate in board discussions in an open, honest, and respectful manner, honoring differences of opinions or perspective.
Ms. Richardson.
Yeah, I don't have too many with that one. Free expression, that free expression of opinion. Okay. And that's what I wanted to, this is what I like to do, That's part of what I was just saying. I want to be able to express without coming back at me, attacking, because this is my thought or my opinion.
No,
No.
you have the right to
No.
do that. You are a board member with all those rights.
Okay.
We just spelling it out in our,
Mr. Williams?
It says, we will encourage and respect the freedom of expression of opinion. So, yeah, I like that.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I see that one as total hypocrisy,
What?
Why?
because every time we have a discussion or we have something to say, or I try to inquire and encourage other people to look at what I'm asking, I'm shot down. So,
I've never
If
had a
that's-
phone call from you asking me to look at the way you.
you've had emails from me.
I keep telling you that. You keep saying you have emails from me, and I ask you if you would like to talk to me about something, please do not email me, because I get hundreds of emails a day. Please call me and say, Dr. Early, this is how I feel, because your emails get missed. Or I tell you all the time, if there's an email link, I will email you separately, because I don't believe in all them emails and everybody dinging and back and forth. And so for you to send an email to me is you not caring that I don't answer emails and you don't pick up the phone and call me. So you don't do that. And then when we have had discussions, Ms. Rayford, what do? You say, nobody talked to me.
No, and you attack. The last workshop we had, I was attacked.
I did not attack you.
Oh,
if
please.
you understand how I'm speaking, I speak like this right now, the same way I speak to everybody all the time. I have a strong voice, and I say what I'm saying with that strong voice. I'm not attacking you because this is not an attack. It's not an attack, so don't accept, and if it was an attack, Dr. Early, you're attacking me and I don't appreciate it. All right, I'm sorry if that's how you felt, because that's what I wasn't trying to do that. How about that? Because if you think I'm attacking you, please tell me,
Well,
so then I will
I
not
said that
do
at the
that.
last workshop.
You didn't tell that to me.
I said that to everyone who was involved.
You didn't tell that to me.
I said it to everyone who was involved.
Okay.
Well, it works
Ms. Gruber?
both ways too, Mary.
Exactly.
I haven't attacked anyone.
No, but you need to.
Yes, you do. You attack me every time you get up here and act like you're not part of this 7-board governance. You are.
How am I acting like I'm not part of it?
Right now, by sitting there doing this, like you're attacking me. This was written because of me.
I didn't say that.
You just.
You said it was pointed?
You just
I said that one seemed,
Exactly.
I said it seemed pointed.
But
That's
it's,
what I said.
and it's not,
got it from
because
someplace
our
else.
ethics is not pointed towards one person.
Okay.
It's for all of us to come together.
Hey, let's come back to order, okay, please? Ms. Rayford,
Okay.
you stated your opinion on it. You thought it was hypocrisy, and that's fine. Ms. Grunberg?
I agree with it.
Okay, next, number 7.
I will prepare for, attend, and actively participate in school board meetings. I will direct questions to the superintendent prior to board meetings in a timely manner. Board members are responsible to choose how they prepare for meetings by logging into Board Book, requesting a paper copy, or reviewing superintendent's updates as a way to participate for meetings.
Mrs. Grunberg?
Yep, it's good.
Rayford?
I have a problem with that, especially if I can't get an answer to a question that was asked.
When you don't get your answer, is that,
I'm not saying one that I,
Exactly. Well, I'm just trying to understand because there's something I want to address on this in mind too, which might touch upon what you're saying. So my question is to you, so I know where I'm coming from when I speak. Is your question not answered because you asked it and they didn't get it back to you in time, or you were unable to get through to them?
I got information that I didn't ask for. I had a specific question. I did not get the information that I asked for.
Did you, and so you got an answer, but it didn't fulfill what you,
It did not,
it did not,
it did not respond to the question that was asked.
did you ask the question again?
No.
Okay. Okay.
I'm good.
I'm good.
The only thing I wanted to say about number 7 was, okay, and I've already mentioned this, I brought this up at the committee meeting as well, too. The way that our meetings are set up on Monday, okay, the flow of how we do it, and our meetings are already scheduled for the rest of this year, okay? I remember back in the day when our meetings were actually on Thursdays. Now, let me explain to you, and people say, why Thursday and this and this and that. But there was some reasoning behind it at that time, because we actually used to get our board packet the Friday before, okay? And I don't know how all of you work, but in general, it's easiest for me because I work a full-time job to look at the packets and stuff like that on the weekends, okay? Because I have more free time on the weekends than I do during the week. So that was the thinking back then, is if we got our board packet on Friday, we had that weekend to go through it, and then on that Monday, we could then get whatever information or whatever questions we would have for administration to them, and they would have from Monday through Thursday to get a response back to us. So they would have some time to work with so they could get accurate information for us. On top of that, I know, for instance, that you have your cabinet meeting every Monday morning as well, too. So that was part of it as well. That's always been that way. So when the superintendent would have their cabinet meeting, any questions they would get over the weekend or by first thing Monday morning, they could get it to the particular people in their cabinet if it addressed an area that they were in, and then they could get the information to the superintendent, who then could get the information back to us. That's the way it used to be. We can't change that right now. So my suggestion is here is if we move forward on this, let's please do our best to get our questions to administration the sooner rather than later. Because if you look at it on the weekend right now, you get a question to them Monday morning, it makes it them kind of pressed for time to get the information to us on Monday. They got to the end of the day to get us that information. So the sooner we can get our information, our questions to them, the better. But it's always best to have your questions asked before we get to the table, if at all possible. Okay? That's how I feel about it. Mr. Williams, you're next.
I agree with that. But I think we get the information. We usually get it on Thursday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
We get
I
it
mean-
like Tuesday, sometimes early Wednesday if we run a little late on something, but.
Yeah, but we get it in enough time to.
Yeah, but see, the issue is,
following
yeah,
Monday.
but the issue is if you work during the week and you don't have a time to open it up and actually look at all the
Oh,
information
okay, I
during the
got you.
week,
I got
and you can't look at it until the weekend, now you're right up against Monday.
Wow, yeah.
I want to be fair to administration as well, too. I don't want to be loading them up with a bunch of questions from 7 different people Monday morning.
Well, I already had asked that with Christine about, I don't look at it until after, after church, because I don't want it all in my mind and everything, and so she had just stated that I gotta find another way of doing it, because I do it either Sunday night or Monday morning, and I've already spoken to her about that. So,
And I guess that gives me a question to you. Do you mind if we send you a text or an email as far as a question we have over the weekend? Can you ignore it until at least Monday morning, please? Is that possible?
No?
Well, see, I say that because I want to recognize the fact that our superintendent has a life as well, too. You know what I mean? And so that's why I'm a little,
My life is this place.
that's why I'm a little leery about,
Not unless we had a conference, because that's when I text her about questions.
Right, I've never.
okay, so you
had a
got your
problem.
answer, so yeah, she'll probably look at it on the weekend anyhow, but.
I've never had a problem receiving a response from the superintendent when I had a question.
Yeah.
So I think she does approve.
Okay, I believe we're on to, we finished that one, right? We're on to number 8 now. Backside,
Madam Chair, can you go on?
home stretch.
Pick up on the next one.
Yeah, we on number 8.
We
If
didn't-
everybody did it,
Did Addie get a chance?
I think we got down to Addie, didn't we?
I did, I told them that I already told you
Yep.
about that, and you said we gotta
And you
find
were
a,
good with number 7?
yeah.
Yeah.
But I gotta find another one.
Okay, 8.
I will respectfully listen to those who communicate with the board and seek to understand their views while recognizing my responsibility to represent the interests of the entire school community.
Ms. Richardson.
Yes, I always try to understand the views and recognizing my responsibility to represent the interests. Yes, yes.
See,
Yeah, I always try to listen,
Seeking
A
to
lot.
understand their views.
not say a whole lot.
I agree with number 8.
I recognize
I agree.
my responsibility.
Well, I've been saying this all along, we have to listen to the community.
Yeah.
Ms. Grunberg.
I'm good.
Number 9.
I will strive for a positive working relationship with the superintendent, requesting the superintendent's authority to advise the board, implementing board policy, and administer the school district.
Yeah, those 3 things, yes. Advise the board, implement, and administer the school, yeah.
Okay, Ms. Grunberg.
Yes,
Seems like
that's
somebody
good.
else wrote this sheet than this one.
Well, the issue of respect has to go both ways.
True. I agree.
I agree.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Number 10.
I will refrain from using personal slurs, snide comments, and hostile criticism of others, recognizing that such behavior is counterproductive to the operation of the district.
That's true.
Good.
That's true. I try to
Absolute-
refrain from it, yep, because of that.
Absolutely. Respect for others.
Counterproductive to the operation of the district.
What comes to mind with me is my mom always tell me, if you ain't got nothing nice to say,
Don't say it.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm not dealing with that one at all.
You want to expound?
Well, I can't expound. Seems to correlate to something that was sent with the update about this is about my post on Facebook. So if that's the case, yeah, I have a problem with it.
So all the other school districts know about that, right, Mary? Because they already said this came from other things, not you. It's not about you. It's to be a better board.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I'm simply telling you and all the board how I perceived it because of the comment that was made in the update.
You want to be more specific?
What update?
What update?
What update?
What are you talking
The
about?
last update that we were sent, and it said, I have a record of it, that this had something to do with my Facebook post.
Oh, I don't know. I just look at this and I read here.
Well,
and I
that's the
can't-
way I took it.
I don't understand.
The subcommittee, what was the date of our meeting? August 4th.
Yeah.
And
The date of the post?
This update came in on the 9th. It was
So after
dated
they
on the
already
So after we
decided
had our
this.
Of
Yeah, so
September.
they knew you were gonna do that.
Okay.
I don't understand all
Well,
this.
alls I'm saying is I look at number 10, and to me, I just break it down word for word. I will refrain from using personal slurs, which I think we should all do, and that should be common amongst everybody, all human beings, snide comments, hostile criticism of others, and recognizing that such behavior is counterproductive to the district. I think I pretty well easily recognize that if I start getting personal, and it's not good for the district. I don't think so. So. I don't understand, but if you don't agree with it, you don't agree with it. That's fine. Number 11.
I will model continuous learning and work to ensure good governance by taking advantage of board member development opportunities, including those sponsored by county, state, and national school board associations, and encourage my fellow board members to do the same.
Mrs. Grunberg.
That's a good one. I don't see nothing wrong with it.
Ms. Rayford?
I don't have a problem with that one.
No problem?
Mr. Williams?
I like it.
No problem. I'm fine.
Okay, number 12.
I will remember always to keep the board focused on its primary work of clarifying the school district's purpose, direction, and goals, and monitoring district performance, and remembering always that their first and greatest concern must be the educational welfare of the students attending the public schools.
Ms. Richardson?
Oh, yeah, this is fine. That's fine.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I don't have a problem with them, just trying to figure out how, because it's stating I, how does one person keep the board focused?
Well, this week.
As an individual, we're all
Personal.
saying I because it's, I agree to that. Dr. Early agreed, so it's I, all of us, not just,
You want to know what? I'll circus that because the wording probably cleaned up there a little bit. Because you could put down, I will remember always to stay focused on the primary work of the board.
Thank you.
It's still
Something along
I.
those lines. So I'm going to circulate wording. I'm going to write wording.
I don't think. she
Because I
likes
think the
word
wording
I.
might, well, because it looks like, because I understand what she's saying, because you're saying,
All of them are I. so
no,
we'll change it.
but what she, I understand what she's saying. We'll talk about it further, but you understand what I'm saying, right?
No, all of them.
Well, she's saying because it says, I will remember always to keep the board focused.
How does,
That one person isn't going to keep the board focused.
that's
It's
my
kind of like the
point.
board president's job is to keep the
Or
board
FERC.
focused.
Right, but what I'm saying is I will remember to always keep focused on the primary work of the board. You know, understand what I'm saying?
Oh, that's what you're saying, that you're gonna, you're.
So that that person is
responsible.
staying focused and they're not trying to keep the board
Thank
focused.
you.
But the government works as a team.
Okay, this is not about the I.
It's not about the I, but what I'm saying is because we do have them all as I will do this, I will do this. No one person up here than the board president kind of, and not even me, can keep the board focused on its primary work.
Thank you.
What she's trying to say is, she will stay focused, or we as individuals will stay focused on the primary work of the board.
Well, could it be
So
to say
I-
we
So are we
remember
changing
as a board
all the
always?
ayes? Is that what
You
you're
understand
saying?
what I'm saying now?
Reworded that way?
No.
So we can
I
discuss this.
disagree with that.
We can
No.
discuss this in committee. We may not change it, but we'll discuss it. in
No,
committee.
yeah, in committee, we'll discuss it further, because I see where the change is. It's right here.
Yeah.
That I will keep myself focused on the work of the board, is
Right.
what,
Yes.
Mary, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Pretty much.
But ain't that
Yeah.
the same thing?
Instead,
No.
no, instead
No.
of trying to, I keep the
The
Board
board
focused.
focused, you're gonna keep focus
I will be
yourself on
focused
the
on
work.
board.
But I, as an individual, part of this board, is going to keep the board focused by playing my role as a board member.
I will do my part to stay focused.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Board work.
I just put wording,
as a
we'll look
board
at it.
member.
We'll look at it.
We'll look at the wording issue. Okay. Ms. Grunberg, anything else on that? Number 13.
Board members wishing to have a physical presence in the district for a purpose of volunteerism or attending school functions without the district shall coordinate with the office of superintendent, excluding extracurricular activities or public events.
I have a question.
Well, it's you first, so go ahead.
So if my granddaughter comes home with a volunteer to go to the DIA, do I have to call you first before I do it?
So it depends on if you are representing as a board member or if you are representing as a grandparent,
No. For grandparent stuff, I wouldn't have to call you.
right? I think that the subcommittee was just intending, I mean, Dr. Early, you could speak better to this than I.
Yeah, the thing is we volunteer a lot at the
Right.
school. We need to let the superintendent's office know that we're going into the buildings for our volunteer efforts. Not that we gotta be like, we're a board member and we're going in, or I'm going in as a grandma saying I'm checking on my kids. But if we're gonna do some type of volunteerism, that we need to let them know that we're in the building.
All right, so like if, let's say Ms. Trice calls me and asks me last minute to do something as a volunteer.
You know, it's interesting, this is an interesting possibility, Cassie, because whenever, irregardless of what, if you are passing out, I mean, Ms. Hall-Rayford, I know, does the Gleaners distribution, right? She's not doing that as a board member, right? She does it because that's part of the group that she belongs to. I know she's there, right? Number of other board members do
mentoring with Love Life.
mentoring through a parish in our community. I know about those pieces, and as a superintendent, I think it's great to have board members that volunteer. But I like the heads up, just because then I know if you come with a concern, what experience you might have been part of to bring that concern forward. But I don't think that, I think that this is an interesting one, really to think about as a board. I think it's really great to know when you're involved and when you're contributing to this community. It gives me a chance to see the hero in all of you in the way that you show up across this district. So yes, as your superintendent, I would love to know about those things because it helps me to tell more stories about all of you as human beings representing this community.
So if I get, I just want clarification. So if I get asked by Chef Shu to come in and judge, do I let you know, shoot you a text?
Yeah, and our staff should be helping to facilitate those opportunities through our office, so that we also try, as the superintendent, I want to protect you from being the only board member that gets extended those invitations. There may be other board members who would love to be part of that too.
I love to
No,
taste
you
it.
can't eat, no.
I knew it was coming as soon as we talked about food.
Tell her she needs to expand her panel.
But the important part
Judging our
is,
food.
you know, as your superintendent, I want to make sure that you're all having equal opportunities to show up as heroes in our community. I love to know about when you're volunteering. I think the spirit of this one is when you would be showing up in your capacity as a board member.
That's what I was
You
going to
know,
say.
and I think that
Maybe.
that might be something for this board to consider, is that, you know, judging, you are being asked because you are a board member. That should definitely be facilitated. Chaperoning a field trip as a grandmother, I'd love to know that you're out there. I usually do, because somebody ends up showing me a picture where you've been there. But I don't think that that's the same spirit for this. You know, because do I want John to tell me every time he's going to a football game? No. You know, if you're chaperoning an event, I'll usually see you there. But I think the spirit of this one
That's what I was thinking, and this is when we wrote this one, but maybe we need to add that in a capacity as a board member, even though you never take your board member hat off.
Right.
But you are there to support whatever it is at that moment for whatever you're doing. So, like, you're not going in there hiding behind a building.
Yeah, I know.
Here to, look at y'all and snitch.
Yeah, but I think overall, we all have the superintendent's phone number. It's pretty easy.
I just want to make sure shooting a text is fine, because I don't
Yes.
want to call you and bug you, and I know you're busy.
I like to
Because
talk to
somebody
you,
asked me
Mrs.
to come in.
Gruenberg, anytime you would like to call, I'd be happy to.
She's too busy, don't
The-
ever call.
The spirit of,
She just knows my conversations are much shorter than
Don't ever
yours.
call her.
the
She's too busy.
spirit of this is that I certainly don't want my school principals only ever reaching out to one particular board member. You are a body, and you all deserve to be coming and sharing in the spirit of volunteerism if you so choose to. And I see our role as the Office of the Superintendent to help to facilitate that, so that you can be involved as much as you want, or only at what the things that you want to be shared.
Well, I just say because before I was a board member this year, I volunteered and did a lot.
Yeah.
And I would also like to bring up that I think if I'm going to do a background check at one school, it should be good at all of them.
Noted.
Okay.
I was cut short with that because that was one of the things I just like to just go in and be there and help, not as a board member, but just as a,
Community member.
Well,
a community person,
I've-
and that was, I wouldn't, had no business going there as a board member. I just wanted to volunteer or be there to support what's going on. So would that matter?
Well, I think me personally, I can get better at this as well too, because we all get invited to a lot of stuff. I mean, you see it. I mean, you get invited, you have a principal of this building inviting you to a ceremony they're having for this or whatnot, and stuff like that. I don't know if that all goes through the superintendents or she knows exactly where. So I'm already thinking in the back of my mind, anytime I'm gonna be involved with the district on anything, I'm just gonna send her a quick text, like, for instance, I know I'm going to, I believe it's Crescentwood, Tuesday for their beginning of the school year functions
Curriculum
that
night,
day.
yep.
And so I will have
So
to
that
remember
should
to
let
just
you
send a
know too?
text, I'm going to be at Crescentwood tonight. Or, so, but I ain't gonna send you when I'm going to the football games, because I'm not committing to all of them. Sometimes it depends on how my leg feels.
Right, and so those, that's why it says,
Yeah, I know, that's right.
extracurricular or public events,
Right.
are not, but
Yeah.
the way I read this, board member Gruenberg, C. Gruenberg, anytime that you're gonna have a physical presence in the district for purpose of volunteerism or attending functions, the district coordinate it through the office of the superintendent. And we don't have to micromanage that, but I think it's great to know when you guys are out there. And part of my job is celebrating the work that you do and the good that you do bring to the community. And I need to be able to tell those stories about what you do bring to the community. It's important that our community know that even though there are public challenging conversations, like going through a code of ethics, that at the heart of it, all of the board is here because they want to make a difference. And so if we can help to bring that forward, I apologize. It's your meetings.
No, go ahead. No, I want you to finish, because we're really trying to, I know this board is far more engaged than any other board that I've been on. There's no doubt, there's a lot of people up here who want to be involved in our schools and helping out our students. So I think this is a good one, and I've never really thought about it in the past as well too, but I think I mentioned to you that I was going to be going to some functions, and she said, well, let me know what you're going to so that we can be there. And even though I'm not big on it, and I really hate I'm not a camera fan, but the district, at least, because we all do want to be involved, she wants to be able to tell that story, that we are all involved and we're all trying to contribute what we can as board members as well too. And you get invited to a lot of stuff, and I would encourage you to go to as much stuff as you possibly can, because, it
kids
does, it helps them out. It makes sure
kids
that
love it, too.
everybody in our district knows we're
They
supporting.
do.
They love it.
So,
I get called Mima by just about every kid I see.
okay, if nothing else, meeting adjourned.